Well, it's been a while since we've been on air, but trust me, we are working away in the background. Um, I've even had people reach out to me wondering why we weren't on air, which is crazy because they said they missed us, and that's funny because my wife doesn't miss me. So it's good to see that people are out there and wanting to listen. We have some stuff in the works. It's just taken a little longer than we had planned. Obviously, we all have day jobs. I have a day job, so stuff takes what it takes. But I'm excited for what's coming. So let's fire it up, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, today we have one of my all-time favorite people, born in Italy, raised on horsepower, and a pioneer of women's motocross. When it was fighting for a place to be, she's raced across Europe, she's raced across America, she stacked up wins, championships, and after a motocross career was over, she did something most racers don't do. She built a second career. That's what we're going to talk to her mostly for today. Now she's shaping the future of competition through eSports, still at the front, just on a different starting line. From world champion podiums to the world of eSports leadership. Stefy Bau, how are you?
Hi, Justin. Thank you so much for having me. Doing very good today. Thank you.
That's great. Give us for anyone that doesn't know who you are, and in the world that we're talking, I would say that's not very many people. But give us a short rundown of who you are and where you've come from.
Yeah, for sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Stefy Bau. You can probably hear that I have an accent. So, yes, I am from Italy, born and raised over there. And I was a little girl with a dream to become a motocross racer. And was lucky enough to have two fantastic parents that decide why not, let's put our little girl on a motorcycle. So at 4 they bought me the bike, and started racing at 6, and they did know nothing about motocross or motorsport at all. They were just fan of the sport, used to go watch the race when the world championship were coming to Italy, but that was about it, the extent of it. But hey, we jumped in, face forward, and we ended up, doing a lot of good thing in this industry. And I guess, what I can claim is like my 7 Italian titles, that I had with the women. I won a men championship, Italian national championship, back in 1997. Then starting travel around the world, landing in the US, became um, mm, I race here in the AMA and WMX back in the days, won 2 titles there, and we also did those women international competitions, which are what it is, the world championship right now. But back then the world championship didn't exist, so this was the backsnatch thing. So like I can claim 3 of those, so 3 world titles among women in motorsport. And then yeah, I became the first woman to race a round of the MXGP while doing some of supercross, here in the US. So that's kind of like my racing career. And I hope, I get to continue to inspire more people to go for what they love.
Yeah, perfect. That's for anyone that doesn't know who Steffi is, that you've just got the real short rundown there. It goes a lot longer than that. Yeah, I can believe you, and we'll get into some esports here shortly. But Steffi, you came up through motocross in an era when women's racing had far fewer opportunities. What were the toughest barriers you personally had to break through early in your career, especially having to do them in Italy and then possibly having to do them all over again in America?
Yeah, I would like to say that maybe the differences were not so much about women and guys, it was more like about the amateur scene compared to the pro scene. Meaning that I grow up and of course racing the kids, so it's all amateur. And at that stage, you really have parents, especially that they don't like their little boys to get beaten by a girl. And that create a little bit of an unpleasant environment. And kind of like grow up, especially when I was closer to my teenage year, figure it out. Is this really what I want to do? I'm the odd one out here, want to race motorcycle. They're all boys, they don't like me to be here. But I guess that kind of like fueled my fire because I wanted to continue to win and prove that I was good, what I was doing. And the support of my parent helped on doing that. So I would say in the amateur scene there was that, like a kind of like a rivalry between the fact that I was a girl, competing against boys. It continued. I can tell you the very first year they are landing in the US, because when I came here I had to race some A class competition with the boys. And even though you think A class, it's the next step up to from there is pro, still was a little bit, kind of like, maybe I call it jealousy, the fact that there was a woman be able to be competitive with the guys. But the fun part is like everything disappeared when I turned pro. When I got the pro license here in the US, there was no more differences, meaning that behind the gate, I was just another rider like every the other 39 at the gate. And when the gate dropped, we were all there to do our best. So that's one of the things that I can say about the difference in being a woman in a male dominated industry. That what happened to me. And then I don't know, like we can touch base on a couple other things. For example, the differences that happened back then, but unfortunately still happen today, not just in motocross, but in women's sports. The pay scale is different. So even though I was one of the best out there, we definitely were not making as much money as the guys. And then it's a long battle that we keep doing. And hopefully, one day that gap is going to get smaller and smaller, because as women, we broke our bones just the same as the guys do. So it is what it is, but at the same time, I did what I wanted in life. I did all of my marks on anything that I wanted to achieve. So overall, I will do everything again, even if there were some moments that they were not as pleasant.
Yeah, yeah. I can tell you, I had to race against a female. She's a little bit older than me, but back in juniors in Australia, and I remember she actually broke a finger of mine with some roost. Not she wasn't out to break my finger or anything, but we were at a race, and she was in front of me, and I was coming up trying to pass her, and a rock came up and hit my thumb, or yeah, hit my finger and broke it. And I went back into the pits. I think I was 12 or 13, and I'm getting my dad yelling at me for, why is the female even in front of you in the first place? Why are you behind her? And you need to get back out there and do the next race. So I went out to the next race with a broken finger. I'm not sure if she beat me the next race, but that's I can imagine a little bit of being on the other side of it, of being the female, having my dad yell at me for getting beaten by a woman anyway. And, I'm sure you had to put up with it a lot more than me getting yelled at once or twice. But yeah, that's great. That's great to, you know, hear all that and see that everything's continuing on forward, and you're making an impact in esports. When you look
Mhm.
back at your peak racing years in Europe and the US, were there moments that stand out that you realize women's motocross was finally going to gain some real legitimacy?
Yes, absolutely. For example, like I turned into the 125 class when I was 14 years old back in Italy. And that was the first year that there was a full on Italian women motocross championship. And it was the first one in Europe. And it was amazing, because I think they led the way to really make, at least in Europe, a championship for just women. I won it at the very first time when I was 14. And then I won six more of those, over in Italy. So it was definitely a point where a lot of people in Europe, again, I grew up there, started to see the potential of women in motocross. And I was very lucky. I guess I was born in Italy, and that's where it all started. However, at the same time, even though we didn't have internet like we do today, we was hearing, of other women across the pond, in the US, but even in Australia, that they were racing against the guys. So me, a young me, got very curious, and I wanted to figure it out. Okay, I want to go and race against those other women, even though we have a full-on championship here in Italy. And it was, for me, it was very interesting to learn that. And I ended up coming into the US when I was, I believe, 17 years old. And at that time, there were Mercedes Gonzalez, which she's a very good friend of mine now. But back then, I remember that she was on the cover of Axo Booth, and they are Italian, Axo, they are Italian. I
Yep.
was like, oh my
Yep.
God, this is like a female and she is featured here. I want to be like her, so we ended up coming here, and there was a race, an international race, a Paris raceway in Southern California, women race that they put together, and there were some women from Australia too. But my target was to beat Mercedes, and I ended up doing that, like beating her and getting the win at that competition. So for me, that was another point in my career that I realized, hey, women motocross is here and is here to stay, and it's not just an isolated, you know, movement that happened in a few countries in the world. This is something that is going to continue to grow and have the opportunity to become a legitimate sport for women worldwide.
Yeah, and it proves how small the world really is. Mercedes Gonzalez actually gave me my start in California with Ricky Johnson, as I
Mhm.
went to a filming thing at Lake Elsinore and met Mercedes, and she hooked me up with RJ, and my first teaching job in the US was with Mercedes and RJ in Utah. So yeah, it's a small world for sure.
It is. But it is also a beautiful word. I would like to say, and you probably agree on this, that once you are in the motorsport community, everybody is a friend. It's really like a family, And even though you compete on the racetrack, you want to beat everybody else and get there first in the checker flag. At the end of the day, we are all here because we have the same passion, and it's very nice to have a support system where everybody can count on.
Yeah, for sure. Um, from a rider's perspective, how different was the culture between Europe and, when you were obviously racing over there in Italy as a young rider? How different was it when you came to America? And you know, obviously the Americans have that stigma of everything's bigger and better over here in Texas. So how different was it when you got over here?
Well, definitely bigger and better. That's the impression that I got, coming from Italy, that if you can imagine, Italy is the size of Florida. So, America is way bigger, than that. So you have that kind of like the sense of everything is bigger and better. But I really love the fact that everything was very more flashy over here. It seems like when you are a little kiddo and you see and read about America, like everything was, like the land where you can have a lot of possibility, and then you look at magazine and you see those fantastic tracks, and then Supercross. Supercross was always something that it didn't exist in Europe for me growing up. And I guess that was the most the biggest impact when I had to race Anaheim 1 in 2000. I can tell you, when I walked in that stadium and I saw the first triple, I was like, oh my God, today I'm gonna die. And it is just a different way of doing things. Motocross in Europe, it grow. I mean, it expanded from really like harsh terrain and natural terrain and not much man-made obstacle, where here in the US you had supercross, which is completely man-made. So different kind of approach, different kind of way of doing things. But I loved every second of it in Europe, and I loved every second of it in the US. I'm a person that likes to be with whatever it's in front of me, and it was very fun. But the big difference, like I said, probably was the bigger, the more flashy, and the supercross style track in supercross.
Yeah, for sure. I know. The last time I was in Europe, I did some events in Kleinau in Germany, and looking at the track, and realizing Americans wouldn't even go anywhere near this track with how many rocks and stuff are down the starting straight. So it's definitely a different world. Um, so many people know you as a racer, but fewer understand your role in helping build women's motocross as a professional sport. What kind of behind the scenes work did you have to do that the fans never really saw, or never really attributed to Stefy Bau, the legend that helped with women's motocross, not only in the US but in the world?
Yeah. I guess, like every m- moment in my career was a stage to be able to see the progression of women in motocross in a different way. Of course, when I was a rider, if you are a rider, you think you are the best next thing that ever walked on this planet. You have to have that mentality. Otherwise, you cannot be a winner. But then, like growing a little bit older, and starting to see a little bit the bigger picture, I really wanted to help women, like to compete in the US at that time. When I moved to the US, I would say that was the most impactful championship there was for women around the world. And I was never shy to actually go and seek out the people that were somewhere else in the world and say, hey, you need to come and race in America because, we're one of the best athletes there are, and if you're only yourself in your own country and race against the boys, it's not going to make the sport grow. So I did a lot of that, even to the point that it was not beneficial for me because when you bring in competition and you might have a very bad year, all of a sudden you're not winning. And I know often the other girls were saying to me, why are you even inviting these people? Do you just want to get beat? And I'm like, ladies, it's bigger than that. Like we need to be able to bring and give opportunity to everybody so the sport can grow. It's not so much only about the individual. So that was something that was happening for sure, and again, I was an European that moved here. So, also that there was something a little bit strange and different in motocross with the men that happened before, like Roger de Coster is the most famous one, first European that came over and made a career and success over here. So I did that. And I think nowadays I'm still the only European that permanently moved, into the United States to race motocross as a
Yeah,
female.
yeah,
And but like, and then I had some of you maybe know and remember that I had a career ending injury. It was very dramatic. I was training for the 2006 season. I was sponsored by Honda back then, and with the likes of David Millsap and Trey Canard and Josh Grant back then. And I had a very bad accident where I destroyed both of my ankles so bad that they wanted to amputate my legs. And that was very hard, and because the life that it kind of stopped, all of a
yep,
sudden,
yep,
and you don't know what to do anymore because the sport doesn't really prepare you for that. You, like I said, you think you can race forever. In my case, it stopped, in a blink of an eye. But when I was able to walk again, the industry embraced me, and I was able to become. I got offered the position to become the general manager of the newly established FIM Women Motocross World Championship, and that was very cool because at that point, me not being a competitor anymore, I really had 100% the chance to help develop the next generation of riders. So I was almost like a mama, to all the other competitors and teaching them all the tricks of the business, and most importantly, to stay strong and have the opportunity to say no, because sometimes women got the short end of the stick by, as I mentioned earlier, not wanting to really get paid as much as the guys. But by creating a sense of community, and a group, we were able to make a very big differences. And I like to think, and I've been told that make a huge impact in women motocross generally around the world.
yeah, and I can tell you it did. Even from the little that I've had to do with WMX, I was over in 2007 over doing the ADAC series and helping some riders and working with them. And you're definitely, your legend does travel around the world, and there's no event that I've been to where people haven't heard of Stefy Bau or what she's done for the sport and women in motocross and stuff like that. So I know there's a lot of people, and a lot more people than just me, that appreciate what you've done, Steffi.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Um, so after retiring from racing, forced through the injury, um, you obviously didn't leave competition behind. You went and did a whole bunch of stuff for the FIM. You've
Mhm.
helped riders all over the world. I've seen you with the the little girl from Africa, I believe it was, trying to get a ride and trying to get her support. But what drew you towards the esports side of stuff and gaming and the next arena for the motorsports? What drew you there?
Yes. So how I got involved in esport is actually um, a moment, that was just the right moment at the right time, and this happened in during the pandemic. So when the world stopped and nobody were able to do anything anymore, the only sport that was able to do something still was actually Formula One. And why? Because through the simulation and the simulator and the games, they were able to put themselves on a cockpit of a sim and compete. And I was like fascinated by that. And the light bulb went on. And as a person that really always like to break barriers for women and minorities into our industry, I'm like, wait a second, maybe this can be an opportunity to involve more women and minorities into the sport of motocross, and not just motocross, but motorsport, in a way that it is a fraction of the cost, and therefore give it the opportunity to discover talent along the way. You and me know that once you're into this industry, you can get out, and but it's also very expensive. At a certain point, it's not easy, to continue your racing, that being two wheel or four wheel, whatever it is. But gaming, it takes away that barrier of entry. Because with a $300 Xbox, and a game, you can compete. So I saw that and I'm like, great, I'm going to start a company. I study a lot first, of course. And then I said, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to try to get the digital native demographic, which are the young kids nowadays, to feel empowered and start to get involved in a passion of mine, which is motorsport, and figured out ways to show pathway to participation. And in sim racing for the cars is really straightforward because nowadays, for the ones that out there that they don't know, the last 2 years, not this year, but 25 and 2024, winner of the Daytona 500. It's a sim racer. It never did anything else before, jumping into a team and race NASCAR at the top level. So this is insanity, like that through a video game, you can potentially, be good enough to perform on the racetrack. Given that with motocross is a little bit more difficult, we all understand that, not just motocross, but also, road racing, because there is not such a simulator out there that is economical enough to be able to be purchased. They give you the feeling of what it is to do a triple or a G-force in a corner at 200 miles an hour, right? But still, it gives you the opportunity to get passionate about it, learn the sport and learn the rules and regulation, and therefore, maybe stimulate new people to go and watch a race and eventually to go buy a motorcycle and get involved with the industry as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, and I know we're going to have continued conversations, Steffi. I know that we both have big plans for some stuff, and we'll get there. We'll come around, but it's it's amazing to see how quickly and how to be honest, I'm a little bit of a Stefy Bau fan. So I've been watching what you're doing and watching how you're going and all that sort of stuff on LinkedIn. So I'm super stoked to see everything that you have going on. But what what is it that you actually do in the esports? Because I know you're part of the commission and all that sort of stuff. So what is your role when it comes to global esports and the sim racing and everything?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I have my own company. They call it Init Esports, and our tagline is "Be in it," so be part of something. And I am the only women-led company in this vertical. So in esport simulation, meaning like car racing or motorcycle racing, I'm the only one. There is a woman that led the company in this industry. So therefore, what happens is like again, I'm back in my ways of trying to continue to break glass ceiling in male dominated industry. But what has happened through that is that I got a lot of opportunity to tell a different viewpoint on how to involve, as I mentioned, women and minority. So with that, I got connected with all of the different kind of publisher in the world, because even though it's a male dominated industry, people crave more participation and more diversity and inclusion, but nobody does it. And again, I caught that opportunity, and I'm the one nowadays recognized in this industry to be able to do so. That led not only to spearhead my company and create competition around the world on with guys, but also with girls. But it put me in the position to be seen. And therefore, I was approached by the Global Esport Federation, and they offered me a position on the board. And again, esport, like motorsport, is fairly much male dominated, but I never shy away to have that seat at the table. So immediately I say, yes, I want to be part of this. And now basically I lead globally the interest of simulation games in all of the different countries that the Global Sport Federation operates in, which are 178. So it's not a chunk change, and be able to be in the front end and give the opportunity to talk about motorsport, even if it is in a digital way, to countries they may otherwise will not even think about getting involved. It's pretty powerful. So I love that. And that's what I kind of like find myself in often, I would say, trying to break those barriers.
Yeah, and that's the exact thing that this whole island talk thing came about, and um, you know, our Island Motorsports Alliance page is trying to do. And um, like I said, there's going to be continued conversation, Steffi, because I think you're on a winner, and I definitely want to help all these islands out. So if you stay tuned, if anyone that's made it this far in the podcast and still listen to Steffi, wait till we get to the end, and we'll give you some more information. But what what lessons from motocross and motocross racing and the dedication have actually translated to you in the gaming world? Because I know that you and I have discussed in the past that there's no real legitimate motocross games out there because of, like you said, the simulator is very hard to come by, and trying to do things on a controller is very different than the real world, the G forces and that sort of stuff. So when it comes to just translating your dedication to motocross and everything, how does that translate to what you do in the esports world?
Well, this is a very good question. I would like to take it in two split it in two ways. One, I would like to tell the fact that what the sport of monocross taught me is anything and everything I needed to know in business. For example, the track change every single lap. So you need to be very sharp in making decision. In business, a competitor can come up every any other day, and you need to be very smart and figure it out, the next move to be able to still be ahead of the competition. Then you need to be in motocross, you need to be calm and calculated like a chess player. And this is the same thing that happens in business. You need to be able to put up a poker face, like you don't ever want to give to everybody all of your secret, because again, you give an advantage to another business and might be trying to do the exact same thing that you're doing and in the industry. Then the capability to stay in front of people and talk. I mean, I was in Anaheim, with 80,000 people having interviews. If that doesn't teach you how to be yourself, I don't know what does, right? And this is the same thing in business. Like if you do even like a job interview, you need to promote yourself in a way that the party on the other side sees what you're telling them, and believe in you, and the individual that you say that you are. And so, anything and everything that I learned by doing motocross, I apply it into the business world. And it's just magic in the happening. I do a lot of speaking engagement for women in leadership and women in sports. And I always say this, I don't think there is another sport in the world that gives you the same skill the motocross gives to you to be able to be successful in the business world. So that's one part that I wanted to tell you about. But I forgot the question. What was the question again? Sorry.
uh,
I forgot.
it, it was what lessons from motocross racing actually translated to you doing so well in the gaming world. Is I mean, your first part probably answered the majority of it, but
Yeah.
anyone that
Yeah.
talks to you, anyone that sees you around knows you're a go-getter. So how does, obviously that comes from your dedication in motocross and stuff like that, but how is it all translating to the esports side of thing? Like, you're obviously going to get followers in
Yeah.
esports because of your past accomplishments, because of what you know. But how is that translating over to the car simulators and the people that are doing that, more focused on the car side rather than the motocross side people?
Yes, I mean, like the car side of a simulation, as I mentioned earlier, is a little bit easier because it is being proven that you with the simulation game on the market right now, it's been proven that you can really simulate what happens in real life. So much so that maybe some of you know this, but Max Verstappen a lot of time gets his own sim drivers inside Red Bull Racing to do the setup for the car that he will use in a Grand Prix. So it is so connected. There is insanity for motocross. Even though, as we mentioned, we don't have a game, but one is coming, and I'm part of it. It's called Motocross the Game, and it's gonna come out, hopefully in Q4 this year. Um, it's very cool to see how all of the physics that happens when you ride a dirt bike are transformed and put into this game. The only thing that is different, as I mentioned, is the fact that yeah, you can use a controller. I'm working with some brands to potentially come up with different kind of equipment that can sort of mimic a little bit, the feeling, or at least grab an handlebar, right? But it's different, as I mentioned, to be able to reproduce the full on feeling that you get on the whoops or on a triple or in a rutted corner. But nevertheless, what we learn, in motocross, that is then translated into this game. So I can't wait to see, when it's going to get released to the public, because the group that is doing this is every single one of them. It is a racer, it's a motocross racer. So it doesn't get more authentic than that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty quick, Steffi. I definitely want to have you on the show again. But if someone from a small island or a small place somewhere in the world is listening right now, what advice would you give them in building a career, not only in motorsports, but how it ties into the sim world and your esports world? What advice are you going to give someone, let's say in the Falkland Islands or over in the Ascension Islands or something like that?
Yeah, so like for sure, the most important aspect is never give up and follow your passion. Because if you put those two things every day when you wake up, in front of you, you're always going to find a solution to do what you love in life. um, Talking about sim racing as an opportunity to get involved in motorsport, the biggest suggestion is either talk to your school if you are a young kid, because we have, for example, a program that goes in school. This called Sim for STEM, which basically we use mathematics and engineering and with hands-on activities, and then the kids, they have to apply what they're learning through algebra to graphing into the simulator, and it becomes experiential learning. So not only the school has an opportunity to become cool, to have a simulator there and teach mathematics and engineering on, but you also get the opportunity to learn, understand, and then potentially start doing online competition. And when you do online competition, you can meet more people in your island, but also starting to explode and go, in the rest of the world. I feel like, and you and me already talked, that it's prime to be able to create a potential sim racing, that big car, and maybe also with a motorcycle game when it comes out, that it is global and unite all the island people, because it will give also an opportunity to hope, in a way of potentially find a digital way to get out of your country, but then be seen and potentially then be selected to be either a driver or a racer in a team, but also, the business side, like as an engineer or as a team manager or a marketing manager. Nowadays, we are also connected online, that leveraging the tools that we have to be seen is just a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah, and you actually took the next section of my interview out of my hands, because I was going to ask you about the Sim for STEM stuff. But we have a committee meeting coming up with the whole Island Motorsports Alliance thing, and I know that you're jet setting off to Japan and doing this in this country and doing that in that other country and going all over the world, being a cool chick. So probably won't be available to be in our next committee meeting, but we're definitely going to, reach out and give you an invitation, because this whole sim thing that you've got going is just amazing. And definitely want to grab a hold of your coattails and get along for the ride.
Yeah, for sure. Like what I try to tell everybody is that we need to meet the kids where they are, and they're all online. Like, so if we can grab their attention there and make them have a very great experience, then they're going to be hooked. So they are going to become the next consumer, of the industry that we love so much. Because we all know, if you have ridden a motorcycle or, go to the racing, even car racing, once you're in this industry, it's very difficult to get out, So
Yes,
that is
yes.
the point. That is the point, right? So if we can discover people that they will not know about it by meeting them where they are, which is online, we get the opportunity to expand the industry in a way never been seen before. And that's, I don't mean only in a point of being participating in the sport, which, still, like from the digital world to the in real world, there is the reality check of the cost. But we can find people that they might be potential, employee or companies, just because they have the passion for this industry, and get involved and create a true pathway in the vertical that we really love.
Yeah, when we had this conversation, we were on the phone last week. I think it was Steffi, and I had my son in the car. You were on speakerphone, and after I hung up, he said, "Yeah, yeah, she's really cool." And then he said, he wants to dust off the sim racing stuff that we have in the shed. So,
Yeah.
just the conversation has got him back into wanting to drive cars and stuff again. So that's really good. Real quick, do you want to promote in at eSports and head people over to your website and all that sort of stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So the website is initesports.gg, because in gaming, GG means a good game. And it's
Yep.
something that everybody likes to say, to congratulate if, somebody wins and somebody else doesn't in competition, in gaming competition. So it is initesport.gg. And we are in all of the social media, maybe not that prominent on Facebook, because the gaming population is not really on Facebook, but you can find us on Instagram and TikTok, and most importantly on Twitch, which is where we do all of our competition streaming. We also just signed a deal with Roku Television. So if you're ever interested in see what we have going on, look at the website initesport.gg, see when the races are live, and then turn on your Roku. You can watch it there.
Oh, awesome, awesome. That's a good bit of news to let everyone on the islands know, because I know a lot of people are streaming stuff over there. And it just happens to be that Steffi and I have had the recent conversations. Believe it or not, Steffi, I've known you for 23 years, so that's
Yes, I know it's been a long time.
yes, yes. Um, so Island Talk is definitely going to be starting to work on the esports, and you can go to our website at islandmotorsportsalliance.com, and I've just put an esports tab on there. We are going to start to pick Steffi's brain a lot more. This is
Yes,
not us trying to take anything over. Steffi is a friend and an absolute legend in the industry. So anyone that's listening, you can reach out to us. You can hit Steffi up on all her social medias and all that sort of stuff. She is much busier than I am, so she might take a little bit of time to get back to you. It is what it is. But yeah, we're going to start doing some stuff. And Steffi, just so you know, I've already reached out to a couple of islands, and they're all about talking about it, and you know, having
fantastic.
visits and getting this sim racing and everything off the ground. So this could turn into something really good.
I can only hope, because I think it is a way to get kids motivated, excited, and potentially, open up doors for careers in the industry. As I said, not necessarily only about being a driver or a racer, but just like, even if you can get a job in something that you love, it's very cool and it's important. So yeah, and one last thing, the website is there for the competition, but if you want to get a hold of me, I live on LinkedIn. That's where I'm at. So if you want to find me there, I'm Stefy Bau, and you should be able to find me there. So reach out if you have any ideas, and always happy to listen.
Yes, yes, and I can attest to that. She's very easy to talk to, very easy to get a hold of when she does have time for everything. But yeah, if you need information about sim racing, or even if you're a male or female motocrosser and you've got some questions about motocross, we'll help you out. But Steffi's, you know, been there and lived it a lot longer than I did. Believe it or not, Steffi, I had my career-ending injury was them wanting to amputate my ankle as well after what was called a spiral break in both bones at the end of my foot, and they wanted to amputate, and that's what
Yeah.
ended my career as well. So, yeah.
Well, we have a thing in common there, even though it's not really a pretty thing to have in common. But hey, we are resilient, right? We keep going. And in motocross and in sport in general, you crash 10 times and you get up 11. So we are proof of that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, for anyone that wants to get a hold of Steffi, LinkedIn. If you want to get a hold of us, you can. The best place to hit us up is on Instagram, and that's island.talk with a RQUE. I know everyone complains about my accent and says that I can't say talk properly, but it is what it is. I speak the Queen's English, so for anyone that's got a complaint about that, you need to complain to, well, the King now. So it's been awesome, Steffi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to continuing working with you and get some of this island nation excited on what's to come.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely be in touch. Hopefully, I'll be watching all your social media feeds while you're in Japan and see what you're up to and see all the cool stuff that you're doing. And when you get back, we'll have a chat.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.